If you had a paid family leave matchup between the US and Sweden, it wouldn't be anywhere close to a fair fight. You might have seen this New York Times article a few months ago. The world has found a way to do this. The US lags on paid leave. Here's the New York Times map for national paid maternity leave. The average length for countries that have it is 29 weeks. And you can see the US over here with 0 weeks of national paid maternity leave. Or as BuzzFeed cheerfully said in 2014,
"Oh, that's right. The good old US of A is the only developed country in the world that doesn't provide new parents with any financial assistance."
And here is the New York Times map for national paid paternity leave. The average length for those that have it is 16 weeks. Again, the US with 0 weeks. And just to be clear, federal workers in America get 12 weeks of paid parental leave, and a small handful of states in the US have some sort of paid family leave law. But they vary pretty wildly, and I'll talk about some of those later in this video. So why does the US still not have national paid family leave? Well, mostly because there are a lot of people in the US who have the mindset of Joe Rogan.
Most people, when this happens, if they make enough money, the wife will not work and the father will work.
Right.
And then the wife takes care of the child. And this is normal.
Yeah.
And then the dad provides support when he comes home. If you're saying that the man and the woman should both get like 3 months off, this is a new thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
Isn't
it's
it?
not new in Europe, but it's...
We're not in Europe. This is better. This is America.
So let's talk about how Europe's paid family leave system is not better than America's, and then let's talk about employers. Here in Sweden, paid family leave is pretty generous. The parents get 480 days or 16 months to split up between the two parents, and there's a minimum amount that each of those parents can have. You can take out parental benefits up to when your child becomes 12 years old, and typically it seems like most parents just take off 6 to 9 months right after their kid is born. Parents usually get 80% of their salary while they're on parental leave, and if you get sick, you can just switch to sick days for those days. If you share your parental leave equally between both parents, you can get an equality bonus of about $5.50 per parent per day. And guess what? Sweden isn't falling apart, and the rest of Europe isn't falling apart because of paid family leave policies either.
You don't mind if we listen to some car jams, do you?
Well, man, let's just get right to track 7. Elation, 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 elation.
You're probably thinking a big reason why the US won't have a national paid family leave law anytime soon is because of the employers. And there are probably big employers and lobbyists in the US who are against paid family leave.
The economy is in shambles right now.
Taking the
close look at the marketplace right now. Dow Jones.
Stop talking, goddammit!
I'd assume that includes the company where employees have to pee in bottles because they don't have enough time to use the restrooms. Oh wait. More than most, Amazon has been on the cutting edge. The retail behemoth not only offers a generous paid parental leave policy for both moms and dads, it also helps parents ramp back up after being out and even pays for its employees' spouses who do not work at the company to take time off. Alright, so even Amazon supports paid family leave. What about the company which has played a big role in destroying democracies around the world because of how easily they allow misinformation to be spread on their site? Facebook. Do we have to actually call them Meta now? Meta Facebook provides 4 full months of paid maternity leave to full-time employees. Okay, so if big employers are for it, then what's the biggest issue in the US? Do you know how many Americans support a paid family leave program? A YouGov poll of 21,000 Americans last summer found 82% of them think employees should be able to take paid maternity leave, including for adoption. And 68% of Americans support paid family leave for both moms and dads. So was it the US lawmakers' fault then? Partially because they can't figure out how to pay and structure the system.
I've been quite open about this around the office. I don't want this parks department to build any parks because I don't believe in government. I think that all government is a waste of taxpayer money.
That same survey found only 47% of Americans support government funding for it.
It all makes sense now.
No, it damn well doesn't.
If less than half of Americans don't want to pay slightly more taxes for something like a paid maternity leave program, then obviously the only other option is for companies themselves to do it. And while massive companies like Amazon, Facebook, and Twitter do provide that so they can be competitive with employees, a vast majority of companies in the US don't have paid family leave policies. Or if they do, their policies aren't very generous. There are a lot of companies which are really big in the US and in Sweden, so let's compare those. IKEA, big Swedish meatball company, you might have heard about it. In the US, all of their employees get 4 to 6 months of paid family leave. Volvo in the US, employees get 6 months of paid family leave. H&M, one of the largest clothing companies in the world. They give their employees who've been there for at least a year 6 weeks, 1.5 months.
Wish I could, but I can't. Well, can, but won't. Should, maybe, but shorn't.
Michael, please.
What part of shornt don't you understand, Kevin?
So if you're working for H&M in the US and you're only getting 90 days of paid maternity leave, your coworkers over here in Stockholm at H&M are getting 480 days. Moving on, I mentioned how some states do have paid family leave programs. Since it's not federal law though, they each have a wide range of benefits. For example, in California, you get about 60 to 70% of your average weekly wage for a maximum of $1,540 a week, and you can use up to 2 months of leave. They take 1.1% of your payroll for the state-funded family leave program. In New Jersey, you get 85% of your average weekly wage, and you can take 3 months of paid family leave within a year. They deduct only 0.1% from your payroll for that state program. Last Week Tonight talked about California's 2002 law back in 2015.
More than 90% of the companies there reported either positive or at worst neutral effects.
Businesses seem to just make it work, and the polling data we have when we survey them, most of them say it's just not a big deal.
And that absurdly low amount of money taken out of paychecks for state-funded paid family leave programs is probably why the world has found a way to do this. You can check out my last video on 5 things that Sweden does better than the US by clicking here on the screen. Thanks for watching.